basically Gregor, the other producer, called me up, said it's an interesting movie. I have one to pitch to you called Tetris. I sort of thought, I knew the game, I didn't know the story. Read the script and I thought it was fantastic. And I thought it was a really great story about a very an unknown story about a very well-known game, and that got me excited. So and it was a brand, and I felt it's a movie that people would enjoy and be interested in. Well, Taron is a good friend of mine. Obviously, we've now made, I should know how many movies we made, maybe 5 together, and I thought of Taron when I read it because these are characters that have traits which are slightly questionable for likability, but he can take that and sometimes do pretty outrageous things, but you still like him, and that's for me that's the definition of a movie star as well, which I think he has become one, and he plays the role as I couldn't imagine anybody else playing the role as well as he does. One of the reasons why I brought this to Apple was, Apple and Tetris and the birth of Apple and the Tetris and Game Boy and Steve Jobs, Hank. These were visionaries that, they broke the rules to make the world better. Not enough people are doing that any at the moment. I think everyone's become too conservative and thinking in the box, and break rules to make the world better is a great thing to do. Hank broke a lot of rules. I think the fact that it was made in Russia, and I remember I grew up in the Cold War, and we all had images of what Russia was. So it's a sort of, originally the script had 2 pages of explaining the backdrop of Russia being the enemy of the West, and now by the time we finished the movie, we were like, well, we can cut that out. But I think what I found most interesting was an American going behind the Iron Curtain and to a game that was obviously Russian, but I never assumed Tetris was made in Russia. I just felt it was just an American invention for a game, and the backdrop was just chosen as a marketing tool. And I think, when the villain was the Maxwell family. Robert Maxwell is a fascinating character as well, and the great line that sometimes truth is greater than fiction. I've now got used to making movies about people that are not only real but are alive, and it's a bit of a tricky relationship at the beginning because sometimes there's decisions that need to be made to make the movie better, and trying to explain that to someone when they've got memories of what it was really like, and you're going, well, we can't compress your whole life story into 2 hours without cutting stuff out and or combining moments. What astonished me when I met Hank and Alexei is they really are those characters. I found it quite funny that the first meeting, Alexei was very pedantic and I'm not sure about this, and then Hank was like, I want Tom Cruise to play me, and was all over the fast and energetic, and Alexei very just particular about everything, and so I was impressed that the script had actually really, and now the actors as well, they really captured what the real people were like. I've always been a producer, and I think it's important to, for my sake and the people I work with, just to remind us that movies can be made for smaller budgets, and I like to break talent. So a lot of the crew that we put onto Tetris, Tetris was a big movie for them. These smaller films I do for a training ground and to give me muscle memory of that. It's important to, at the end of the day, making a movie is a camera, script, actors, and when you get into big budget stuff, you tend to forget that. It's probably easier for me to be involved in the movie set in the 80s because it was the time where culture and I was absorbing it. So I obviously love 80s music, fashion, film, probably because I was 13 and this was fresh, new, and exciting. So recreating that feeling wasn't hard for me, or to, John's the same age, so John can talk about this more than I can. But that's why I sort of mandated we had to have electronic music, had to use music from the time. The clothing, I could look at it and go, no, that's a cliche, because the problem is there was the reality and then there's the cliche of what people think the 80s were. So we were trying to keep it into the, because I was there, I could say that looks stupid or not. And trying to think. There was something about the 80s. It was a time where sort of again the 80s to now is a very similar time where where basically the world was a pretty tough place to be living in, and so art and fun was everything got music, films, fashion exploded as a reaction to the dour times we're in. So I think hopefully this will inspire kids to see what it was like and go off and say break some rules, make something different, and this decade I hope will be a decade that stands for, because if you think of the last 20-25 years, there's been nothing original. So whether it's in music, film, fashion, it's all rehashing what people have done before. So I'm hopefully now this will be the beginning of a new era.